Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the SharOn Show, where SharOn has lovely straight hair today.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah,
straightened it.
we were just talking for like a half an hour and I didn't say anything because I wanted to say it on the show.
Aw.
Yeah, so how you doing today, SharOn? How's your week been?
Good. Been good. Went to the chiropractor and my neck and shoulders are adjusting better because I've been following the doctor's orders to stretch my neck and do certain exercises, which I forget to do during the day, but I'm trying to remember to do better. So it's helping.
Yeah, I hear you. It's kind of like you got to get a new routine going, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear it. Well, I had a pretty good week too. Actually, in the weekend, I went to go visit Carrie or Librarian Bear. So
Ooh.
shout out to her. She's probably in the chat, I'm sure. We had a great time. She introduced me to Kyle. We had a really good time. Did some readings, all kinds of fun stuff. Hung out near a lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had a really good time. But I'm back in Daytona at my friend's house, and I am in the Zen Den. So that's why I look a little pink. My hair is not really pink. It looks,
There's just a pink light, you guys,
yeah.
allegedly.
I didn't dye my hair pink. But yeah, so what do we usually do is the tarot cards in the beginning, the reading. So I think SharOn's going to pull the first card, then I'm going to pull a card after, see if we can get any synchronicities going. But this is episode 11. So before you pull a card, I just wanted to say that.
Say that. Okay, here we go. I'm pulling a card.
Dun, 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 dun. We
Dun,
need some
dun,
card pulling
dun.
music.
8 of Cups.
All right.
And
Eight
to
of Cups.
me, isn't that like walking away from like situations? And I mean, cups are about emotions and stuff. So it's kind of like walking away from maybe the past or past emotions and stuff like that. And like letting go and just moving on, I feel like. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Well, a lot of times, because you can see the cups are built in a formation, kind of like a building or something like some kind of structure. So a lot of times I've heard it referred to as, something you're working on in your past emotionally, could have been a relationship, could have been family stuff. And then right now, it's just not yielding the benefits, or it's not yielding the fruit that you want. So sometimes you have to walk away from it and leave it, and then it'll become what it has to, and you can always come back to it another time. And the way you see it in the Rider Waite deck, it looks like there's like a low tide going on, and so you could kind of see that with the waves in the background. If you just imagine like that's low tide, so the water's way out, and then as we know, there's cycles. You see the moon up there, so there's going to be a cycle, and it's going to bring that water back. So maybe there'll be a time where it will be fruitful to work on that stuff. So it's really just about, knowing when to hold them and knowing when to fold them, to quote the immortal Kenny Rogers. And there's our quote: "You got to know when to hold them,
There's
know
your
when to
quote.
fold them." Yeah, there you
We
go.
didn't have a
Know when
quote
to walk
today.
away, know when to run. Yeah, it's so that's kind of what that's about. Sometimes you have to detach yourself from a situation, whether it be family or a relationship, and you have to wait till maybe the calmer waters prevail, or it's just the right time to come back into action.
Yeah, that's relevant for me, actually. So,
Cool.
but yeah,
I have a
it's
card here,
yours.
Seven of Pentacles,
I
and
don't get that one. I don't get that one often. I don't think I've ever gotten that one for a reading
really,
for for a reading for
ooh,
myself or anyone else that I can think of.
Seven of Pentacles. It's a good card because I like seven. Seven is kind of one of those numbers of perfection that they say. And when it comes to Pentacles, it all has all to do about like the earth, or like it could be about how you make a living. It could have to do with your family, just anything that keeps you connected in the earthly realm and the dirt. So it's about kind of gaining a perfection of something. And seven, we talk about nine as the number of completion. I think seven is when you get that perfection in it. It's like when you first start to master a craft that you're working on and you start to get that confidence. That's really when you're in the seven. It's kind of like it's the stuff that you look back, you're going to look back to and be like, oh, these are the good old days. And it was the seven and we were just out there crushing it. And you know, I just opened, wow, that's crazy. So I opened I have a Kindle book here. It's Michael Tessarion's book, The Path of the Fool, and it has all the different cards. And I
Mm.
opened it up here to see what it would say, and it was right on the Seven of Pentacles already. So I must have already looked at it or something. So here it says Seven of Discs. We pause and take a needed rest. We recuperate and let things develop on their own for a while. We work selflessly and wait for due rewards. And then the negative could be we work for the good of others. We are overlooked and exploited. We refuse to state our claims and reassess and assert our rights. Can't read today. Failure to take the time out, impatience. So that's some of the negative stuff. But it's, again, I guess it's about that rest. That's kind of something that I forgot about, because in this card, you probably can't see it now. You won't be able to. Kind of. It's basically just shows a guy who's like a farmer, and he's resting on his rake and he's looking at all these pentacles that have grown. So again, he has this mastery, right? His garden is flourishing. What's it about? It's about reflection and taking the time to look at it and, kind of maybe see what your weaknesses are and then see what your strengths are and then go from there.
Awesome. The more you read it, and then I looked in my little book, I realized I probably have gotten it maybe once because it sounded familiar when I read it in my book. And it's funny because the eight of discs or pentacles is also kind of like it's built on top of that. It's like practicing your craft and like just doing that day-to-day practice and continuing to perfect upon it, right? Isn't that what the Eight of Pentacles is about as well?
Yeah, it's about after you attain that mastery, then how are you going to make it work for you? And then working in a definite way, kind of like, because the eight is the infinity symbol. So it's all about like going on forever in perpetual motion.
Yeah. So pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And what deck is that you have right there? I forgot what it's called.
This is the Hermetic Tarot.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah, there we go. You can get it better. So it just shows these.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shows, and then it shows just the growth around them.
Cool.
Yeah. It's about harvesting also kind of the fruits of your labor and realizing a way to make it work for you in the world, or however you want it to work for you. It's like really like that first step of mastery. All right. So, well, today, speaking of mastery, I don't know how that's going to relate, but I'm sure it will. We're going to be talking about division. And this was always one of my favorite subjects in math. I love division. I thought it was so cool. And, but today the division we're talking about is a little bit different. I think one of the biggest problems that if I had to we always talk about how the world is perfect, right? So I guess it's not a problem that we could bitch about, but, one of the things I see that hinders, I could say, progress of people that want to move forward and they say they want a better world and all this stuff is division. And it's division along lines that to me don't really make a lot of sense if you're going to be fighting an enemy, because that's what a lot of people perceive this to be. It's some kind of battle, right? Even if we just talk about it being a spiritual battle. And
or a battle between good and evil,
or a battle. Yeah, we could talk about that too. Of course, a battle between good and evil. And mostly, though, what I really see is people that come across some truth, or that are trying to fight the evil in the world, or they're trying to battle things. Along the way, they start to they find people that have certain truth, or they find a book, or they find a way or religion or whatever it is, and they cling to it like that's the only way. And then they seem to ostracize people around them because they get into fighting about the minutia about their way, their path, and they think it's kind of a path for everybody. And they feel, and I was guilty of this a lot. And I'm like, wow, I found this awesome thing. You guys look at what it did for me in my life. It's got to work for you. You got to come and, come do this. You got to try this. Listen, vaping cocaine is the way to go. Just a little inside joke from our travels. So yeah. That and okay. So that's basically what we're going to talk about is division. So I just kind of wanted to lay out what I see and what's going on really, because anytime people are like, quote unquote, like against the government or against this institution or that institution, I feel like their approach to conquer it or to like get over it or overcome it in that whole process, they just end up ostracizing everyone around them and fighting with them. And then they get caught up in this stuff. And then they feel like they have to defend their point of view. And then it just kind of all falls apart before it even starts. And I think one of the biggest ones that we could talk about is prioritization of qualities that you see in other people. And this is one I was talking to with Carrie about with Librarian Bear. And we were talking about in the context of comedian Owen Benjamin and any context really about any person. So if you meet a person and you're talking to them about your ideas and they have this way of seeing the world that you don't agree with totally, say, you meet them and they believe that Santa Claus is real, and you're just like, what the fuck? How can this person, but for whatever reason, they just believe Santa Claus is real. They're raised however they were raised, and they kept it going, man. Maybe they saw Santa Claus, maybe, who knows? But they're a good person, they live everything else right. They live in accordance with natural law. We could say they try to live the golden rule. They do all this stuff, but just once a year, they're like, yo, I got to put out cookies for Santa. Now, now if you're going to be friends with this person, and I guess that's kind of a ridiculous one, but we'll just stay with it anyway. Or say you're just going to be a neighbor, you're looking for somewhere to move, and this guy's a potential neighbor. Now, is that the first thing you're going to look at? Is it going to be, oh, does he believe in Santa Claus? Or is it going to be, does this guy, take care of his yard? Does he like take out his trash? Does he beat his children? How does he treat his family? How does he make money? Is he an overall good?
Yeah. Will he be a good neighbor?
Yeah. Does he like to lie? Is he truthful? I think all these things, and this is what I'm talking about when I talk about prioritization of qualities of a person, is that there's other qualities that are ahead of their worldview in that way. I mean, I guess, of course, if their worldview affects the way that they act in the world, that's different. But if it's something like this, right? I don't understand, or no, sorry, I was going to the wrong one. That's really what we're trying to lay out here. So I feel like this is one thing we could probably just stop the whole episode now. People just embody and it really prioritize the qualities of a person that matter first. And then whether they believe we went to the moon or, is this world round or flat or just a simulation, or what's going on? Is it just a dream we wake up from? Is there a God? Are we going to go to heaven or hell? All these things that are going to come after or matter after, I think that those need to be prioritized a little lower. I think, how do you feel? Let me bring you in on this because I've been talking for a little bit of a while, but I'm sure you've been affected by this in your life.
Oh, yes, for sure. And like you said, I've been guilty of being a pusher of what I thought was right. And, over the last couple of years, I've come to, uh, you know, what do you call it? Eat crow and recognize that I don't know everything. I don't know anything. And anything that I say to somebody is just from, at this point, it's just going to be from personal experience. I've wiped the slate clean as far as possible from any previously held preconceived notions of what I've been told is true. So I am open to possibilities. Now, of course, there are things that it's not that I hold tightly to things, because that's another thing that I wanted to bring up is like, I don't, as much as there are things that I see are going in the direction of what I think could be true, I don't hold tightly to something, because there could be some day when I find out that something else makes more sense than what I thought. And I could change my mind, and that could change my mind. So I don't hold tightly to those things. But what you were talking about as far as holding judgment over people for having a certain viewpoint. Yes, I've been guilty of that. And I do my best not to be that way toward people at this time, because of the experience I've been through. And do I sometimes want to be, like, how dare you not, or how could you not? Yeah. And I still struggle with that sometimes with certain people. Especially people who say they're open-minded and then then they're not. That starts to aggravate me a little bit. So I do need to work on my patience and my acceptance of people based on their qualities and prioritizing their qualities. So don't think that we're here to like tell you what to do, but I'm preaching to myself, as we have this discussion, because I do still have moments where I get aggravated when I'm sharing something. I'm trying to be open-minded and I'm sharing something with someone, and then that person is like, how dare you, this, that, and the other. That's not real. This guy's a fake liar and he's this, that, and the other. And it bothers me. It's just like, I guess maybe I'm trying to woke rape them or something, and maybe I should just really stop. But it also, something you said reminded me of the Tao when they say when the book says something about it's one of the quotes that it's one of my favorites, about he who speaks does not know, and he who dang it, I lost it. Huh?
You had it, I think.
He who
knows doesn't speak.
Thank
he who
you.
speaks doesn't know. Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so when people are trying to convince someone else of something and like preaching their little doctrine of like, no, it's this and it's that. How dare you think it's like this? To me, it's like, I feel like he who does not know speaks. And in many cases, when I see that happening around me, I just keep my mouth shut, because, there's nothing I can say that's going to help the situation, because certain people already have their mind made up. So in that case, I try not to speak. And because I don't really know everything either. And so, who am I to tell somebody, they're having their own experience, learning about life, and they're at this point right now. And if they can't jump through that hurdle, by me explaining something very simple, that I think is simple, then maybe they need something else, and it's not going to be me, obviously. But that was kind of a rant of some sort. I hope, did I answer the question?
Yeah, no, that was great. I feel like I went through a lot of the same stuff when I would meet people and I had all this truth. I would just try to not all the time, but if somebody's interested or talking about something a little bit, I would just kind of try to lay out my worldview and show them how I was right. And it's like, no, it has to be this way, this, and this. And it would really be intense for people. So,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know how many minds I actually changed to people. People are definitely certainly interested, and people still listen and stuff now. they'll come talk to me about things. But I think the biggest mistake that I was making was really kind of, they had like a little flame going, and I would just like dump all this gas on it, and it would actually put out the flame,
Instead of
which,
fanning it lightly.
yeah, I mean, it might be a bad analogy, but like they had like a little, like one match, and I was just like, whoosh, and I was like, no,
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right, kind of ask questions, and just, you could just kind of open them to different ideas that way, or just put them onto stuff. I was telling,
Yeah.
so it might have been Kyle when I was talking to him, I can't remember, but I was saying how I was at a wedding, and I think I might have told the story, and this guy came up this year, actually, not maybe a few months ago, like, I don't know, October could have been. And he was just talking to me about all this stuff. And he said, he's like, oh, my son's into conspiracies. And I'm like, oh, really? So
Which ones?
yeah. And so he asked me my whole take on that. And I was like, well, and I talked about the double cross, which I feel, briefly to explain, it's like, I think there's like a, like JFK, or you either think he was shot by Lee Harvey Oswald, or it was like the CIA with the mob, and Fidel Castro got together with the aliens or whatever and shot him, or that's the double cross. You have the mainstream story, and then you have and that's for like the normal people who just don't care. And then you have, for people who question and who go a little deeper, you have this conspiracy.
Conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
Point. Yeah.
And
But
then,
yeah. Go ahead.
well, I'm just saying, it's like it's so well, because I figure if you're going to run a psychological operation, and you've been doing it long enough, you're going to see that some people are going to get it. Now, what are you going to do with these people who get it? You're just going to round them all up? Well, no, because then you're just going to prove them right, So I feel like you have like pissed on breadcrumbs and like a fake thing of what it could be. And a lot of people, and again, this really has to do with just people's attention, because they don't have the time and attention. So they may be onto some truth, but they still have a family and a job and all this stuff. So they might have like an hour, a half an hour, 2 hours a day where they can listen to like conspiracy stuff or read stuff, but they don't, there's in that whole frame of mind, then the conspiracy side of it. Oh, it was a conspiracy. It was the mafia or whatever. It was this guy. It all makes sense. You just put these breadcrumbs out there. You have, people who are involved say these crazy things. And then there's evidence to suggest that it could just all be a show, that JFK might have been an actor and he was in on it. I mean, maybe they really did shoot him, but up until then, he was just an actor playing a part. So I just explained briefly the double cross, how that works. And then I kind of told the guy a little bit about JFK, and showed him the stuff about Lem and JFK and this guy who lived with his whole life named Lem. And it's just really weird. They never mention it in the news. Mm-hmm. So, and that just inspired him to go look into it. And then he came up to me like halfway through the wedding. He's like, wow, I was looking into some stuff. This is crazy. So instead of me laying out like, oh, there's these people and they run psyops, and it's like, no, what about if it was just bang, bang, bang? What would you do? That's what I say. In your situation, think about it. You're running the show. You're trying to do this. What do you think? So it just gives them a little bit of a lead. It's kind of like when you're teaching a kid how to ride a bike, you're just holding the bike a little, and then you let it go and let him do it, instead of riding the bike and just having him sit on it the whole time. You're letting them do it for themselves. And then I think when they come across that truth like that, it just makes it makes more sense to them, I guess. And it's just it doesn't feel like so contrived or whatever.
Yeah. Something you were saying earlier made me think of the human design personality, test, or whatever that thing's called.
Go on.
Because you and me are allegedly projectors. And one of the things that our friend Spoons was talking about when she did this breakdown for us was that projectors need to be invited to provide their commentary, because in cases when they're not invited to provide their input is when people like they don't accept it well. It's almost like we're woke raping people when we're not invited for our opinion. So that's the reason you and me haven't been successful in starting those types of conversations with people because it scares them away. And so it's better when they ask our opinion, and then we can give them commentary, and it's well received. It's much more well received when we do that. So I thought that was interesting because it was it matched up with me. It totally resonated when I looked into that human design for projectors. But something else I wanted to say too is that you've said that you used to do those sorts of things where you would uninvitedly say things to people, right? And I mean, I've done that too. And
Breaking the Frog's gay.
But I do like your approach now, like having recognized that your approach is like comedy based. It's more like questions based. It's more like, who was this guy Lem? Did you know about him? I didn't. One day I found out about it and I thought that was pretty curious, and it makes other people go, huh, that is curious. And so I do like that approach that you have, because it is very, it's not intimidating, and it's not woke rapey.
Yeah. Thank you. That's another form of division, really. Woke raping is just another way to divide yourself. The way I look at it, this is a war. Goddamn, I'm a spiritual warrior. And if I want to survive in this society, in this culture, even if I think it's fucked up, even if I think the world's fucked up and totally inverted, if I still want to survive in it, I could go move to the woods and do all that, or I could just connect to the people around me and do my best, work on myself, and then just let them see that, and then let that affect them, because they're like, wow, when stuff happens, they're like, oh, let's call Brandon, because it's like the life commercial, like, Mikey likes it, just feed him anything. It's like, oh, Brandon, nothing scares him, just tell him about the fucking aliens crashing through. I'd be like, hey, guys, it's just, come on, do you know anyone that was actually, come on. So yeah, that's what I try to do now, and that's what I would suggest for other people, because when it comes down to anything, even if, oh, did you hear that? There's like a really loud owl here. It's great. It's me, because he's like, who? Me? It's me, man. All right, so that's my owl joke. This owl derailed the whole podcast. No, I think any situation, say you have a roommate that just is the worst, instead of like actually trying to berate them and all this stuff. That might be a bad example, because you really got to set boundaries sometimes. It'll come back to me, but I think this woke raping concept isn't just about truther stuff. It could be about other stuff too. That's all I mean, about behaviors that you notice in people. Like, say somebody drinks too much, instead of just trying to hit them over the head with the fact that they drink too much, just kind of hang out with them and hear what they have to say, and just be your best self around them. And you might be an inspiration to them. If not, there's really nothing else you could do.
Right. Yeah. They have to go through what they're going through. And like we've said several times in some of our podcasts, they have to do it till they're done. They have to hit the brick wall, hit the bottom, rock bottom, and realize, hey, where am I going with this excessive drinking? Why am I doing this? And heal themselves.
And the best, it sounds like a freaking monkey's out there. Like, what is out there? Could you hear that?
I mean, I heard something very slight,
like,
but
oh, that's all right. I wonder if the viewers will hear it. Anyway, so if I get stolen, it was by the monkeys outside. And I didn't mean the black people. Okay, guys, Jesus, you guys are so racist. Yeah, and what else that means for people like us or anybody really is that you don't have to save the world. You don't have to change everybody just because you came across some truth that helps you. Even if you see somebody that's like in a relationship that's like codependent and you're just trying to be like, listen, you're in a codependent relationship because
Yeah.
of this. I learned about masculine traits and you're acting really masculine. Say your friend Jane, you're acting really masculine, and your boyfriend Joe, he's acting really feminine, and they just might not want to hear it. And just because you came across the solution to this, and I'm talking to myself a lot because a lot of truth I came across, I'd always be like, guys, I figured it out. you know it really absolves you from that responsibility of having to wake up everybody and make sure everyone, just because you figured it out. No, it's like you have to turn that mirror back on yourself and still work on yourself and just be that example, because in that trying to change everybody, you're just saying that, God's plan's wrong. The plan of the universe is wrong. Jane should be, not with Joe. Joe's a scumbag, but maybe, you don't know why it's happening. Maybe Jane and Joe are going to break up a year after they saved someone else's life. And then it was worth it because they were together and they were there at the beach when Jimmy was drowned. And you know what I mean? Like we have no idea what's going on. So I say that's why I like when the Tao says the world is perfect, because we don't understand what's going on. Now, the grabble in that is, oh, the world's perfect. And I said this all the time, but I always like to say it. The world's perfect. I don't have to do anything. No, that's not what it means. It just means that you don't have to get caught in despair about how it is. You don't have to let it get you into this place of non-action where you think you can't do anything. Because there's so many truths in the lie, or so many lies in the truth, that it's like, can you change the world? Well, it's perfect, but you still can change it by changing yourself. So yeah, you could change the world. Should you know, is it perfect? Yeah. That just means you shouldn't despair about it and let you get upset and let you get all pissed off and hate people and get mad. And, it's really, at the end of the day, just comes down to your motivations for your actions. We say this all the time. Like when a psyop happens on the news and you see something happen and it's going to affect you, I say, well, what are you doing this out of? Is it fear? Is it anger? Is it hate? Or is it because this is what you want to do? Is it action you're doing out of love or kindness or curiosity or whatever it is? Is it, that's really the key, I guess. But we're getting a little far. I think we're answering some of our under questions, but this is good because they'll tag back around. We can
really
go back
good.
around. Yeah.
It's really good because you touched on salvation, which is a topic I want to talk about.
Yeah, do it.
Because, okay, so the next, as we segue into the discussion about the different forms of division in our society, we have different angles, and one of those things is religion. I mean, there's amongst the various religions, you have even sects of religion, like
Christians can't even get along with Christians. Like a great example to what we're going to talk about later, and I could just even bring it up now. It's like, if you really think that Jesus is the way and Christianity is the way, and then you're fighting with other Christians, it's like, I mean, I get it, but I understand if you don't agree with what they're doing, but then the fact to fight with them about it is just like you're creating extra, I don't know, extra turmoil where there needs to be none, I guess, unless you really think they're going to go to hell and you don't want them to burn for eternity. But it's on them, It's like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Because you can't. That goes to the point that you can't save other people. You can only save your own self.
Yeah.
You can only help your own self. Now, I mean, of course, we have the example of little small children, but even still, when you get on a plane, they tell you, well, I haven't been on a plane in years, but if the oxygen mask falls from the ceiling, put it on yourself first, because you need to help yourself first before you help other people. So even in that, even if you have to help your children, you still have to do it for yourself first. So there's no like saving of other people. And it was interesting because I was listening to this Crow episode The latest one, it's called, oh, it's actually 385. I forgot what it's called. But this Bushman, well, he's not a Bushman. He's working with the Bushmen of the Kalahari. And he's learning a lot from them. And he mentioned something interesting amongst all the really amazing stuff he talked about, which I highly recommend that episode. Even if you just catch the first hour, it is epic. I haven't even finished it. And
I listened to the first hour earlier, and the title is Ancient Knowing on the Brink of a New Era. And
okay.
Yeah, it was very, very fascinating. A guy basically wanted to start a business where he can get bushmen to help him take people out as guides into the wilderness and stuff. And then, he started to learn about them and about how this guy walked like 50 kilometers or 70 kilometers in a night or something. And he's like 80. Yeah, it's just.
Yeah. And then with like an inner knowing, getting a little off topic, which is fine. But with an inner knowing of where his family had been resettled, because they had been resettled in a resettlement camp and he had escaped himself. He was 80 something years old. And nobody told him where they were. He just knew within him, and he let source guide him to where they were. I mean, these people have these amazing abilities, and we have them too, but we've forgotten that we have them. I mean, that's why I think this episode is so amazing, because it really goes back to what Crow talks about is, nature, everything is there. All the truth is there in nature because it never lies.
SharOn, don't say that we forgot that we had them. Rather say that we were convinced that we don't have them.
I like that.
I've been listening to a lot of Lord of the Rings. That's how they talk. They're like, don't say that. Rather say, because it's so true. Because I feel like we basically just been convinced.
Yes.
Like the little engine that could in reverse. I think I can. I think I can't. I think I can. Well, guess what? You can't.
Exactly. And there are people out there who, by their own, I mean, we've done it clearly, but people continue to do it by saying, well, I don't think I can achieve this, and I don't think this will ever happen for me. And it's despair mode. It really is. And I mean, I don't know what the answer is, except for being grateful for what you have, and always looking for the silver lining, because there's always a reason for something happening in your life.
I think that's like the true. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's like the true black magic, because if magic is aligning your thoughts and emotions to create action, then black magic would just be the inverse of it, which would be to remain in inaction mode, because your thoughts and emotions are in conflict and you're not creating action because of either despair, because you think you can't, whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So within this episode, amongst all the other amazing discussions that they were having about the Kalahari Desert and the Bushman people, he mentioned something which I thought was kind of interesting, because when I used to go to church, I would hear about the missionaries going to the people who had never heard of Jesus and who needed salvation. And so, I mean, this guy is talking about Bushman people who do everything without bothering nature, in the sense of everything is regarded with respect, whether it's the animals, the plants that feed the animals, nature, everything is respected. And nothing is overused, nothing is overkilled. If they have to kill an animal for food, they literally empathetically take on the pain of that animal. And the person who kills it, they go back to the camp, and the person who kills it feels the pain of that animal. And then once the animal passes, they know because they're like, I don't feel the pain anymore. And then that's when they go back to the animal so that they can, take from it and eat from it. But in many cases, they'll leave enough for other animals, for lions and stuff like that, if the lions are going to come and eat. And they've been known to, even if they need to eat meat, because they don't eat that much meat, but they use it as a supplement to whatever else they eat, which is mostly plants. But when they do need to eat meat, they've been known to like scare off the lion so that they can take from a kill, and then they'll leave, and then they'll leave the rest for the lions. So they're very respectful of the earth, of the animals, of the flora, the fauna. And so, and they live without many possessions, and they don't even consider them possessions because they don't consider anything as belonging to them. Not people, not animals, nothing. Everything belongs to source, the creator. And so to me, it's just funny that some dude in some outfit coming from somewhere here, from the West or wherever, I don't know, and going over them, telling them, you need to be saved. It's like, they're like, from what? We are happy. We have everything we need. We don't disturb the earth, the animals. As what do we need? What do we need to be saved from? Oh, and the other thing is the ego thing, which we can talk about later. But they, when it comes to ego, they smash the ego. They don't let anybody's ego get too big. So,
okay. After I'll come back. Sorry about that. Go ahead and listen.
You're fine. It distracted me. They don't let anybody's ego get too big. So, if somebody, for example, kills the biggest creature and for food or whatever, they make fun of him. They use comedy, and they're like, they put them down. They're like, oh, that food is rotten anyway. Ha ha ha. So or they say something like, oh, you want to be the first one to eat? Okay, then you get to wash all the dishes. It's like they keep people humble because it doesn't let anybody's ego because they can't imagine that someone is better than someone else. I mean, they have this down, but there's so few of them. And many of them have been put in resettlement camps because they're being called poachers, and they're being said that they're destroying the land. And it's like, excuse me, do you even know what they're doing? Do you even know what they're capable of? Like, we should all be living like that, So that whole concept of salvation, and some like missionary or minister coming to tell you that you need to be saved when you're living according to like creation and natural law, like, really? You need to be saved? That makes no sense.
Well, it's like they're Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and people are coming to tell them,
oh, there's this guy named Jesus. They're like, huh? Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say, it's funny because people, when they get into missionary work, they're doing it most times that I've seen that people that go do it, or I've spoken with, they're doing it from a sense of good intention, and
of course
they have a good idea, and they think they're helping people. In some situations, they could be helping people. We're just talking about this one specific situation, but I think we could see there's other, point to other times where missionaries were just kind of like pretty terrible in that situation. And if you look at like how it was done in the colonial times, they would have the missionary there, and they were basically there just as a re-education to kind of try to get the people up to the modern civilization. And, you see these people that are living closer to the earth and everything, and there's mining interests, there's all kinds of interests, forestry, that is just not gonna, they're butting up against, technically, literally butting up against the way we're living our lives and the way they're living their lives. The one thing, though, I would have to say about their lifestyle compared to ours is that I do feel, yes, it is way more a better way to live. It's more natural, but it's hard to, because when you start talking about, if you take the concepts in that little tribe and then you try to upscale it to like a whole society, it turns into communism. You know what I mean? And it's funny because I think that's why communism, not just communism, like the word communism, but the tenets of real communism is so appealing to so many people, because it does feel like a more natural way to live. But when you upscale it to people and you try to foist it upon them and they're not born into this hunter gatherer way of life, that's when, that's when like the devil, they say, is in the details, right? And when you try to do all that stuff and get it over. So I think the lesson we could all learn from it would be to live closer to nature. And if we could do that on our own naturally, that'd be fucking great. I just wanted to say that because I know that could trigger some people.
Yeah.
And it does, it does make sense, because again, just like I said, so many truths hide among lies and lies hide among truths, that, yeah, it's a better way to live, but we can't just be like, hey, all right, everybody, we got to go fucking live like the Kalahari tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Get
And
rid of
I'm
your
not,
possessions. Oh yeah. No, I know you're
right.
not.
I
I get
wasn't
it.
promoting that, even when I said like we should all be living like that, I don't mean like, okay, let's stop everything now. It's like that's impossible because we're already ingrained with all these things. It's really, I mean, to transition to something like that is ridiculous, right? So I get it. I'm not promoting that
Oh yeah.
necessarily,
Yeah,
but
for
I'm
sure.
just saying I love how close to nature they live and how they respect nature so much.
Yeah. And there's a lot of irony there with people coming into where they live and trying to tell them how they should live.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like anybody when he was talking about that in the episode, I just thought to myself, anybody. It's like somebody coming to my house, knocking on my door and telling me how to live my life. I mean, basically that's what we kind of have going on,
Well, yeah, we do
sort
have
of,
that going on,
right?
right?
So it's like, excuse me, you can't tell me what to do. This is my life. This is my house.
And the funny thing is, most times it's people trying to get you to live not in accordance with nature, cover your face, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And according to the way they see things, because they've been told something and they've been indoctrinated in all these re-education camps.
Exactly. Or
Yeah.
education camps,
Huh?
or just normal education camps.
Yeah.
All right. So where were we at? We were at religion. Did you want to?
Yeah. So,
Well, we could kind of talk about, because a lot of these things we're going to talk about the different forms of division in our society, like sports teams. And that one's pretty easy. You could basically just look at people in your life that you've known, or even yourself. Like when I grew up, I used to like the 49ers, and anybody who liked the Giants, I was like, fuck you, that's stupid. And you like get into fights and stuff and like arguments. And I see people at bars fighting about it. And, I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's a lot to be said about that. It really just reminds me of the same thing when I was in the Marine Corps. I was 18, I joined the Marines, I went through boot camp, and I was like, and everyone says the Marines is the hardest. So then I figured that I would get that respect. So when I went out to work with some Navy guys, I figured they would just know I was the best. Or some Army guys,
were they Navy SEALs?
No, they weren't. I did meet some Navy SEALs, though. They're not what you think. They look more like me than they do like people in the military. They have like long hair and beards and shit. Anyway, so
That's
yeah, it's
hilarious.
crazy shit. They blend in. But yeah, so it really just comes down. Let's see. So we're going to talk about sporting teams, military, and that really brings us into like government. That's what we wanted to kind of talk about more. I used to think that the government was like needed to just disappear, and it was the worst thing ever, and that was the source of all our oppression. And because it's this invasive tool that is in everyone's lives and everything. But at the end of the day, if you look at what it really is, it's something that exists because it needs to exist. I feel like everything that exists serves a function.
Balancing things out, right?
Yes, well, kind of for balancing things out, but it's also because what the government represents to people, they need it. These Kalahari Bushmen, they don't need a government because they've kind of figured it all out. And I guess the people in their society who don't want to live that way just go into normal society and they just leave them alone, right? So they don't need a chief or anybody to tell them what to do. They just, their form of doing it is to kind of bust each other's balls all the time. They basically just bust each other's balls and laugh about it. And everyone's chill. Everyone gets it. Everyone's cool. But in our society, it's a little different because our children are taken from a young age. They're put in schools. They are,
Indoctrinated.
yeah. And really, the source of the indoctrination is what we're going to talk about, is that they learn to, even parents kind of teach their children this a lot too. And then it just gets furthered in the schools. But you're kind of like housebroken. You're trained to do what they say you should do, and you get rewarded if you do. And then if you don't, you get punished for it. Now, this isn't like an attack at how people raise their kids or any of that stuff. I'm just dissecting it, looking into it because, I get it. I don't have any kids myself. So everyone's like, well, what would you do? Not sure. I'm just kind of,
I don't know either.
let's ask the Bushmen what they do. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you have this, in a lot of people, it exists where, I don't even think I'm totally over it. It's not like everyone, you just get over it once you recognize what it is, but you get your validation from exterior sources, whatever those sources are. So when you're young, you get them from teachers and priests and parents and people in your society. And when you do something good, you're like, you're a good boy. And you're like, yeah, all right. And you feel good about it. And everyone's like, oh, you're doing so good. You're doing so good. At what though? At the tasks that they're having you perform, because they want you to conform into this whole society. So I think
a mold.
Yeah, I think that's where it started. And that's really the root of it, because we learn it. And then when you question it, the division comes again, because even me asking these questions could piss off a parent. Cause like I said, they'd be like, well, then what the hell do I do? What do you do? And then you start fighting about it. And it has a lot to do with like the way you were raised. So like if you were raised and you were spanked, and then you spank your kids, and you're like, I think we should spank kids, and it has a lot to do with the way you're raised. Because then if that's wrong, I'm not saying it is or whatever. I'm just saying if you don't think you should, or if someone says you shouldn't, then you're like, oh, what's wrong with me then? Oh, what am I, a child abuser? And it comes back to that validation that you're trying to get from other people. Whereas if somebody wasn't so focused on that external validation, when they encountered another person who had a different point of view of the world or said they should do things a different way, it wouldn't rock their entire system. They'd be, what do you mean? They would just, could it be that they would just say, what's this person talking about here? Let me see. Does this make sense? And then they could just weigh options, and they could scientifically look at it. And, you can look at it logically, kind of like Spock would do in Star Trek. But of course, we're humans, and a lot of these ways that we exist in the world are tied emotionally to us. And we're like, how dare you? We view them as, that's who we are. This is who I am. This is how I was raised. I am the 49ers are part of my blood. I got gold and red blood running through my veins. It's the same thing, in my opinion. So if that need or want for the external validation wasn't there, I think that it would be a totally different ball game. And I think that's really what I wanted to get across in this whole episode is, we're not done, but I guess we're just going to climax now, is that if you're really concerned about division and you really want to get together with people and make a change in the world and have it be a better place, you have to, in my experience, it's been better to get my validation internally and to start to realize that I'm doing the right thing and that I do matter and I love myself and all these things. And it's not to say that you shouldn't take advice, or maybe an advice is a wrong word, but maybe the counselings of other people. It's always good to check in with other people to make sure you're not going crazy and off the deep end and stuff like that. But it really, there has to be a balance where you get that validation. And, is it all just coming from people outside you? So I think that's really one of the first places to look. If you have a problem with somebody like, oh my God, this guy thinks we went to the moon. Okay, who cares? That's fine. I could see why they spent a lot of money and people are very, very busy. They don't have, and it's just a cool thing to do is just to accept that we went to the moon, you know, so it's just easier. So if you could realize that and you empathize with that person, then it's just easier to believe we went to the moon, man. That's all. He's just trying to fucking work 9 to 5, living check to check, feeding his kids, worried about all this stuff. That's the way it's going to be for him. It's just easier for him to believe that we went to the moon. So I think it's more about, and again, it's like, you're not really going to, we were talking about earlier, it's not going to woke rape anybody to anything really, even to behaviors that they have. So again, it's more about just working on yourself and being that example, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it just boils down to that. Working on yourself, save yourself. No one's coming to save you. Um, it's like I don't know what else to say. But what you were saying about like people doing the 9 to 5 and this is it's the simple thing and feeding their kids and all this stuff. And I was thinking to myself earlier how just a lot of the people that you and I know and meet are, for the most part, single and usually with no children. Not all of them, but for the most part. Because we maybe have had more time to look into things, more time to go within and do the hard work. And it's harder. It's just generally harder for people who have children and have a 9 to 5 because they have a lot of things to focus on. And that 9 to 5 takes away a lot of their time from spending not only with their kids, but, you know, from other things as well. And then what do they want to do once they get home from work? They just want to sit in front of a TV and, you know, plaster themselves there and just like veg and do nothing because they're tired. And I get it because I did the 9 to 5 and I'd get home and I'm like, I don't want to do anything at all. I don't want to think. I just want to be entertained and sit in front of the tube and not worry about anything at all because I'm tired. And then I'll just go to sleep because I'm tired, you know, and then wake up and do it all over again. So I just was thinking about that and seeing, you know, the dynamic of some of the people that you and I have met. And a lot of the time it's, you know, single people or people with no children or single parents, or, I mean, single parents in some ways it's harder, but sometimes they have the ability to look into more things because they've come across such difficult situations by being alone, single parents.
Yeah.
And maybe they have family that helps sometimes with the children, or they can split the children with the other parents. So that gives them maybe a little bit more time to look into things. But yeah, I kind of noticed that and I thought it was interesting.
Yeah. And that whole rat race, it just becomes mentally exhausting. So you just want the easiest answer. That's why everything fits in a box. It's neat. All right, I got to go to bed because I got to go to work. And I understand that too, because I've been there myself. So yeah, we're not here to like condemn people and stuff like that. It's really just about figuring out where you are and then trying to like get out of it. It's like we're all in a hole. We just got to get out of it, or however you want to kind of look at it, you know?
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to talk about too, when government, is like the hypothetical situations that everyone talks about, because talk about things like, is there good and evil, or you know, what do we do? You know, you say the world is perfect, but what about all the pedophiles that are running around, or all about all this terrible stuff that I see going on in the world, and Nancy Pelosi and all this stuff, and
The pedophiles in the sewer.
the pedophiles in the sewers. And, you know, there's a lot of terrible things that happen in the world. And I feel like, if, you know, especially it's really, because you could just sit around all day and make up hypothetical situations. And I think it really has more to do with your life in the current moment and what you can affect around you, you know, like pedophiles in the sewers, or just pedophilia running rampant. we have some evidence for it, but we're not sure exactly how it happens. We don't even know if these people, like Joe Biden, for example, we don't even really know if he is a pedophile, because all of our source is from the fucking media and from the news. These people could just be, at the end of the day, robots. You know what I mean? Like, we have no idea. And what happens is, I see, we have injustices happen to us as children and younger and growing up. And then we see injustice in the world and we kind of equate it to the same thing. And then we try to fix what's broken in us or the hurt in us by fixing it in the exterior world, or just imagining that we could fix it in the exterior world. Like when I first started, when I first got my pistol permit, I was like, oh, now I could stop a situation if something happens, and someone, it's like, I would just imagine scenarios where I could like save the day or kind of whatever, or like help out or whatever. But
Again,
I think
saving people.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So who really needed to be saved? Probably me, right? And I get it too, because the rage is out there. Like, we talk about rage squirting, and it's like, we're going to get them there. You just get so mad at everything and you want to direct your energy and do all this stuff. But again, if there's something going on in your immediate situation and you could stop it, that's great. Then fucking do it. If there's, maybe you should become a police officer and look into it, if that's something you want to do, or an FBI agent. I don't know, like, how you could stop it, but I think,
but unless it's happening to you, right? It's like,
yeah,
it's all hypothetical.
Yeah. Could it be that your anger is being used and it's being channeled, and it's being used as an energy, the energy of attention, and it's being used for some other purpose? And what if the only purpose is just to keep you in an action and mad all day, so you don't do anything real in your life and start a family and have your own children? It's just another form of eugenics at the end of the day. It's just another belief system you're caught in. Some people think they're a woman when they're a man, and a man when they're a woman, and that's why they don't have children. Some people think that they love someone of the same sex and they don't, and that's why they don't have children. Some people womanize all the time, and that's why they don't have children, or maybe they'll have many, and it's just a bad situation because there's a lot of opportunity for trauma to happen to all these children that you can't properly father. So yeah, these are all just I fucking totally forgot my point there. If I'm being honest, what was I talking about? It'll come back to me, but
I think we get it.
Yeah.
I mean,
So yeah. So I oh yeah, form of eugenics. So rage squirting or whatever it is that keeps you from doing what you really want to do, and expressing yourself and kind of living this existence to its fullest. Whatever keeps you mad or in despair is just another form of fucking eugenics, really, if I'm being honest.
Wow. Totally.
It's mental eugenics. Everyone's worried about the fluoride in the water and the chemtrails and all the food and all the crap we eat. Yeah, that's important too. But what about the mental side of it? What are you thinking about on a day-to-day basis? Are you worried about all this stuff you see because you saw it in YouTube video or on the news or whatever? Do you even know these people? Do you even know a man? Like, that's really what I'm starting to learn about all this, and the psyops too. And that goes back to the government, really. What I feel is what happens with this division and everything is, like, people are trading their freedoms for security, and because of fear, because of the psyops, like the stock market crash, like the Great Depression and all this stuff. I'm sure it got a lot of newspaper play back in the day and on the radio or however they did their communication back then in their media. And I'm sure a lot of people were kind of fooled into a downgrade in their lifestyle because of what everyone else was saying or doing. And because of that, they look to the government for the solution. So if you look for the government for the solution, if you look to them to the solution to your problems, overall, I'm sure not everybody did, but if the vast majority or majority of people do it and nobody else says anything and they just go along with it, then you're kind of asking for it. It's like you're literally giving up your freedom for more security. You're saying, oh, we can't handle this, government. Can you step in and do this for us? We're not we're hoisting your personal responsibility onto somebody else or onto another organization because you feel like you can't do it because you're scared. And if you're scared and you fear, it just means you don't trust God's plan. You don't trust the plan of the creation of the one, of the all, of the universe, of the spaghetti monster, however you want to put it. um, and you're saying that you know better, and it's, again, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be prepared for situations and you should just sit around there. That's where the new age trick comes in. It's like, haha, you always got to be vigilant. Whenever you think you got to figure it out, there's always another fucking layer that opens up.
Well, New
So
Age is another religion because they were all intended to deceive you into some other direction.
yeah, exactly. And it's another one of inaction because you're just sitting there hoping everything's going to be good and just saying, oh, the world's perfect. I don't have to do anything. No action required. Well, no, I feel action is required because you're going to do action no matter what. You can never be in inaction totally. Even if you're just laying around, you're still, guess what? You're laying around. You're performing the action of laying around. So, yeah. Did I cover everything I wanted to in that rant?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, basically the
Yeah,
solution is to worry about your own self because who cares? It doesn't
exactly.
matter.
It's funny how we kind of hit everything we wanted to talk about without actually being in the same order. But we could touch on, though, like the reasons for division, because we did, even though we did talk about this a little bit. But I think the reason division is so prevalent in our society, you see it with everything. What schools you go to, what part of town are you from? Are you tall? Are you black? Are you short? Do you like to eat pizza? Do you not eat wheat? Are you a vegetarian?
Are
Like
you
all these
gluten
things.
free?
Yeah, like,
Are you vegan?
do you like the Giants? Do you like the Yankees? Do you, all these things. It's really because I feel, because the way we're raised, we have this, many of us, and maybe the trauma we go through, whatever it is, many of us have this feeling of self-hatred. And when we meet somebody, because we hate ourselves, uh we have this identity that we have to, um I guess we have to put on. It's like a face we have to put on, right? Like a fascia. And it's this person who, I'm from this side of town and I like the Yankees and all this stuff. And it makes you who you are because you hate who you are. So you put up this, this false facade. And when other people encounter it, they're basically doing the same thing. So if their way isn't right, so if I was in this way and I met somebody and my way to them wasn't right, then I'd be like, oh my God, I'm not getting their validation. There must be something wrong with me. So I would just have to convince them that no, my way is right. So then I could receive their validation. It's just totally inverted. So yeah, it's crazy when you think about it at the end of the day.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So that really has to do, like you were saying before, with the ego and with the Bushmen. And I think that's how the ego is created. It's this face that we put to the world. And I don't think it's always like a bad thing or a terrible thing. It's just like, is it running your whole life? That's the question. And if it's running your whole life, then I think is when people run into problems a lot more. Because there are times where you're going to need the ego. There are times you're going to need that part of yourself. I don't feel like any part of us is wrong or there's anything wrong with it. It's just that if we can't accept it and we push it down, then it's going to come out in a negative way. Could it be?
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something else I just wanted to touch on is the concept of like worrying about your own self. Like don't worry about, like you said, external validation or what other people are saying, or even what other people are saying is going on in the world. And it just reminds me of like, so I don't know who said it somewhere, but imagine you have no, it's like the Amish, right? They have no they don't watch the TV, so they don't really know what is going on in Uganda or in
Hmm.
Australia or in wherever, right? So it doesn't affect them. And because it doesn't affect them, they can focus on their what they're doing and building and growing and making food and making cheese and whatever, whatever it is they do.
And they could
Um,
rely on what they see with their own eyes to let them be their guide and their
right.
their intuition. But yeah, go ahead.
Right. So it's like when you allow those things that other people are saying to affect you, um, it like you said, it's just affecting your own um it's just it ends up bothering you. And I lost my train of thought. But anyway, what I wanted to say about that was that when you're focusing on um, other people, um, you're not focusing on yourself. And so, like, okay, I think of karma, right? If if you're like, oh, the pedos and they're doing this, that, and the other, it's like, well, okay, pretend like you didn't even know about this. Like you don't have a TV, you don't know that these alleged people are doing allegedly that. You're not affected by it, right? And it's like, even if you knew the guy across the street, or you, let's say, not knew, but let's say someone told you, oh, your neighbor is a pedo. Okay, let's say that it's near to you and it's not like the media telling you. Then, you know, of course it could potentially affect you, but it's still that person's life and it's still hearsay because you don't know, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's still their life, and their consequences, the consequences will come to them if that's the case. uh so why are you worrying about it? As long as you have your children, you keep them safe, you alert them to, like, don't let people get near you that are by themselves and trying to lure you into something or whatever. Like, you keep your children safe, and then you shouldn't have to worry about it. And that whoever that person is that's allegedly doing something, let their karma get worked out, because cause has an effect, and their actions have consequences, and they won't affect you as long as your intentions are good. And I mean, that if that's not in your karma, it shouldn't affect you. And that's how I see it, at least.
Yeah, and if it does, it's kind of like one of those things that what can I learn from this?
Exactly.
When you look at the situations in the world, and again, it goes back to my motivations before. Are you looking into this because you're scared and you're mad? Are you afraid? And that's why you're trying to alter your behavior and your action? Are you acting from a place of fear? It's a lot like we were talking earlier before the show about when people say, how does God allow this to happen? And I remember having this conversation when I was a kid in a born again Christian Pentecostal faith. And I was talking to people and they were like, how did God let my mother die or whatever? And I don't really look at God or the creator in that way. I feel like whoever created this created a realm for us to exist in
To
and to
experience.
experience. And I don't think that creator takes an active role in what goes on.
Exactly.
I think it's more about your behavior, and when you align your behavior with a certain in a certain way, you're gonna experience that. You're gonna get those fruits, negative or positive. And a lot of times those things overlap with us and we think that we're the victims of them, but a lot of times it has to do with either things that we've done in our life or our parents or a family before us. And it's just like a rock tumbling down the hill, and we're that part of the hill that the
Where
rock's
it
hitting
hit.
right now, and it's got to go to the bottom to settle for it to be perfect,
Done.
right? It's all and I explained this recently to somebody. It's like when you throw a rock and a stone, or a stone into a still pool of water, you're going to get a lot of waves, a lot of
Ripples.
reverberations and ripples. And if you were born before that stone was thrown, or after that stone was thrown, I'm sorry, if you were born in the middle of the turbulence, you look at the turbulence like there's something wrong with it, like this is what's wrong. This is very turbulent. I don't understand. But and then you might die in the middle of that. But if you're around long enough to see everything come back into balance and harmony and get still again, then you would see that all the turbulence was needed. Because if you throw a stone in a lake, it's not just going to bounce out like ice, it's going to go into that water. And that's what we exist in. We exist in the realm of water, obviously. I mean, water's all around us. We are water, allegedly. We breathe water. Water vapors takes up more of the atmosphere than anything else, than any other gas. Don't let them fool you. The number one gas in the atmosphere is water vapor. I think if we can learn to align our thoughts and actions more with water, then we might start to get a little more. And God isn't responsible for what happens. He just set it up, or whatever you think, allegedly. I think he just set it up. And if you align your behavior again with the light or whatever, with the right, or whatever, however you want to look at it, things are going to manifest in your life, and it's just going to kind of happen and go along. And then maybe bad things will happen, but maybe the bad things happen to you in this time because you have that perspective where you could deal with it and you could just absorb it. Because if there are just waves going everywhere back and forth, what's the best thing you could do to stop the waves? Waves would be to absorb them. So if somebody says something that slights you or bothers you or annoys you or pisses you off, if you could just let it go. And again, it's good to establish boundaries and situations and stuff, but I just mean little petty things. If you could just let it go, you're absorbing all that energy that they gave to you, and you can use it for whatever you want at that point, because that's really what they're doing. They're just giving you, people are just giving you their attention, which is energy, if they're just yelling at you or whatever it is. And if you could absorb that, then it does contribute to making the waves a little more still.
Yeah, and it reminds me of the concept of that I've said before, I think, that life is happening for you instead of taking it like it's happening to you and being a victim. And the for you is about you learning from your experiences, learning from those alleged negative things that have happened to you, rather than being the victim, like Brandon was saying.
Yeah, exactly. Well done. And, basically what we want to say is, who cares, right? Like if somebody else has another point of view or way of looking at the world, as long as they're directly not hurting you, who cares? Like, and what we mean is, like, if somebody thinks that the world is flat and you don't think the world is flat, like, but are they, but, go back to the qualities, like, is that the number one thing we should focus on? Or, like when I was into the ANCAP thing, the whole anarchy, what is it, anarcho-capitalism, if somebody was like they're called a minarchist, if they believe we just should have a little bit of government, and it was like this point of contention, and you like try to argue with the people, and it's like, but are they a good, are they a good dad though? Like, are they, are they a piece of shit? Like, what's going on? So I think that's really, because we argue about these hypothetical situations and how it should be and how it could be, and it could be perfect paradise and all this stuff, but it's not. And if you want it to get that way, what's the best way? Just act like you're already there, man. Just act like you're already there. Act like you've been there, and then maybe you will be someday.
Yeah.
But
And
we don't know it all. So, if you think you know better than us, let us know. Comment. Anyway, go ahead. What are you going to say?
yeah, I was just going to say that to end the discussion, I think you wanted to talk about and give an example of how this division can work for example, in the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings is a great, I love this. I've been such a Lord of the Rings nerd lately, but if you want to witness division in action, it's the perfect way to do it. Especially in the books, you could see it a lot more, but even in the movie, you could see it because you have a man, a dwarf, and an elf working together with hobbits, and they have all this, like going back for years and generations and ages. There's like hate between these different groups for little things that had happened, but they all have the same enemy. They all have one enemy that if they don't conquer this enemy, then they're all going to be destroyed no matter what they do. So it's kind of like that. Just look at these petty arguments in Lord of the Rings and how silly it was. And then when they finally got together, they were able to defeat the enemy. And,
Cast aside all their stupidities of like, oh, you're an elf, an elf, and I'm a hobbit, and we hate you because of this.
yeah. I mean, even if you have, there could have been disputes where one of their relatives killed one of their other brothers and all this stuff, and they're all pissed about it. And all that stuff already happened. And it's all about just facing the true danger. Like what's really the threat here to us, to all of our existence. And that threat is that we don't have enough subscribers. So make sure you share this show with people. And we need more subscribers now. But yeah, and I think that's really a way for people in movies to just kind of see that division. It's in a lot of different movies, but that's another one. You just think about the American Revolution, the story we were told, the 13 colonies, they all have their disagreements, but they got together and they sure showed the British, who were mostly German soldiers that were mercenaries. But yeah, it's
If we can believe all that.
yeah, I know. I don't believe any of it for a minute. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that. And yeah, this was a great episode. Thank you, SharOn,
Thank you
for helping me put this episode together. And thank you, everybody in the live chat. You guys are awesome. You're the reason we do this, and you make our Thursdays so much better. And if you're not aware, we premiere these every Thursday night, and you could be in the live chat on YouTube for now, telling us all your opinions and just hanging out with us. So make sure you go there, check us out. My website is morelawsmoreproblems.com, and you could buy my book that I wrote. You can get the PDF at shadowworked.com. And what do we say to the lovely people, SharOn?
that if you're not oversharing,
then you're totally not caring.
That's right.
That's right. So do it. Do it.
Do it, man.